In the tradition of Malcolm X, peace be unto you. The political philosopher Thomas Malthus said in his book On Political Economy that every advanced national economy needs a lower class or caste of people who are unproductive consumers. Centuries later, in the 1970s, Henry Kissinger would describe the lower classes in the United States and the world as useless eaters. There are two basic premises we should make note of in their statements. The first is the idea that some groups have a limited purpose in the social order. They are kept alive to be unproductive, not productive. Their role is one of social passivity. That role is the lowest grade of life in the social hierarchy. Since human beings are by nature productive creatures, the unproductive group or groups must be socially sterilized. They must be made to be utterly unable to make anything useful for independent living. Whatever they do, and whatever they do need, which is useful to them, must be bought from the master class or caste, in our case, the elite or the plutocracy. In so doing, the unproductive caste advances the economy of their masters. To play that social role, they must be made to have less human dignity and worth on the scale of human dignity and worth. Somehow, those sterile groups must be made to subconsciously consent to their dehumanization. The second premise is that those unproductive groups have a single role. That role is to eat and drink, to consume that which is produced, whether it be tangible goods or services or false beliefs. So not only must they be made sterile, but they must also be made to literally eat food mixed with waste in a variety of forms. The consumption of waste by the unproductive consumers will play an important role in the profit calculations of corporate and governmental officers, because those officers are guided by a principle not spawned from the moral ideal of right and wrong, but rather from a very narrow application of the cost-benefit ratio. It is not difficult to see in what direction the American plutocracy or elite are moving humanity ever so slowly. If you have been keeping up with the vast economic changes taking place in the United States since the mid-1970s, then you probably already know that over 4.5 million jobs that were once in the United States have been literally sent overseas with United States manufacturing companies. That should indicate to all of us that corporations are not bastions of patriotism. Rather, they are businesses owned by shareholders or by the corporation itself for only one purpose or function. That purpose is to make money whenever and wherever its officers can. And it will fly any flag necessary to achieve its profit purpose. But why is this duplicity, you wonder? One reason is that the cheaper labor costs are, the greater profit margins are for the owners. Even now, robotic technology is advancing with such speed that even the cheapest labor in Asia is being displaced by robots, which can do work for less money and increase profit levels even more. A second reason is to hold on to its surplus cash in offshore bank accounts for the purpose of avoiding taxation. By doing that, you and I, the individual taxpayers, carry the burden to pay for all government and state expenditures. Now here is the end game. The plutocrats or elites' goal is to maximize their wealth, power, and money. They accomplish that by a strict application of the cost-benefit ratio to each human life in the underclasses or unproductive consumer category. In 1900, the average lifespan was 42 years of age in the United States. Today, that average is 79 years of age. Businesses and governments calculate the worth of unproductive consumers as a separate category. From infancy to about the age of 50, the average consumption rates of unproductive consumers in all markets serve as a benchmark for the amount of government loans from the Federal Reserve Bank and other loans as well to private companies, as well as religious institutions. Infancy to the age of 50 are the peak years during which individuals are active consumers of the goods and services which monetarily benefit the top 1% of the economic classes in the United States and the world. After the age of 50, and with 7,000 people retiring every day and for the next 15 years, along with the onset of millions of chronically ill and long-term terminally ill individuals, the cost to private companies and government, federal and state, per individual increases and slowly begins to eat up the years of income made off of each of those individual unproductive consumers. Age and illness would tilt the cost-benefit scale on the side of cost. Increased cost for entitlements is not part of the worldview held by the corporate and governmental officers. For them, such a course of affairs would be illogical. Understand that the entitlement policies enacted in the early 1930s under the Roosevelt administration were intended only to be a band-aid for dealing with extreme poverty in the United States at that time. It was not a policy intended to be enacted or etched in stone. To offset financial and tax losses, new policies for unproductive consumers will be and are being enacted. For example, euthanasia or assisted suicide is now permissible in some states, and that policy is going to grow inevitably and spread to most other states. But generally, the consumption of waste over many decades by individuals will shorten the lifespan of millions of people in the lower class or classes. For example, in all age categories, African Americans have a higher obesity rate than white people. That higher obesity rate is correlated with increased chronic illness as well as terminal illnesses such as cancer. Can we turn all of this around? That's a good question that we should think. I think so, but I also know that time is running out. What we can do, and what we should start to do immediately, is to produce our own food as much as possible and test the water we consume. We should institute a national People's Financial Center, even if only a savings and loan national network. We should reduce the amount of money we spend outside our own circles. We should exercise and eat better food. We should make all of the above new cultural values at the center of our lives in our communities. Do I think we will do all or even some of the above as a people? I have no evidence to support the claim that we will. But I hope, against what evidence suggests, that we will make the best of an increasingly tragic socioeconomic and spiritual condition. I am Dr. Stephen Nur Ahmed. Peace be unto you.